Welcome to Warrior Bulletin News, a delivering fast, honest, and reliable updates from around the world. Stay ahead with the truth. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. I don't care if you're about to go to sleep. I don't care if you're at work pretending to be productive, because what I'm about to tell you is the kind of story that comes around once in a generation, not once in a season, not once in a decade, once in a generation. Because what Stephen Curry just said in an interview, what he just admitted out loud for the entire world to hear, is something that the NBA has been terrified of. Something that fans have been dreaming about, something that analysts have been debating as a hypothetical for years, and it just went from hypothetical to very, very real. Stephen Curry, the greatest shooter in the history of basketball, the man who changed the game forever, the face of the Golden State Warriors for nearly 2 decades, just went on camera, watched LeBron James highlights playing on the screen behind him, and essentially told the world that he's open to teaming up with the king. Not in some vague, diplomatic, "oh, it would be cool someday" way, in a real way, in a "if the king wants one last dance, he knows where to find me" way. And the basketball world, bro, the basketball world is absolutely losing its mind right now, because the implications of what Curry said are so massive, so earth-shattering, so fundamentally game-changing that I genuinely don't think people have fully processed it yet. So, let me break down exactly what happened, what he said, what it means, and why the rest of the NBA should be absolutely terrified. Hey, what's up everyone? Real quick before we get into everything, that like button is literally what determines if this reaches hundreds or thousands of fans. Takes 1 second, but makes a huge impact on the channel's growth. Just smash that like button right now. It's the easiest thing you can do, but honestly, the biggest way to support this content. Every single like pushes this further, so hit it now. Let me set the full context, because you need to understand everything that's been building to this moment. It's April 29th, 2026. The Golden State Warriors have been sitting at home since April 17th, when they were eliminated from the play-in tournament by the Phoenix Suns 111-96. Their season is over, done, finished. A 37-45 record, 10th place in the West, bounced in the play-in for the second time in 3 years. And Stephen Curry, at 38 years old, is sitting in his mansion in Atherton watching other teams play in the playoffs, other teams competing for championships, while he sits on his couch. And not just any other teams, he's watching LeBron James, his greatest rival, his Olympic teammate, his brother in basketball, still out there at 41 years old fighting in the trenches against the Houston Rockets, still dominating, still breaking records for players over 40 in the postseason, still proving that greatness doesn't have an expiration date. And while Curry watches LeBron compete for another ring, he's looking at his own situation, and the frustration is eating him alive. Because the Warriors that Curry is under contract with, the team he's given his entire career to, the franchise he turned from a laughingstock into a dynasty, that team just went 37-45. The front office, led by Mike Dunleavy Jr., just got a multi-year contract extension despite the losing record. Steve Kerr still hasn't decided if he's coming back. The roster is a mess of young guys who need development time and veterans who aren't good enough to compete for a championship. And Curry, who is still playing at an elite level, still one of the 5 best scorers in the entire league at 38 years old, is watching his final prime years evaporate while the organization talks about the future. Now, here's the piece of context that makes everything click: the 2024 Paris Olympics. That's where the story really begins, because in Paris, Stephen Curry and LeBron James played together on Team USA, and what happened on that court was something that transcended competition. The chemistry was instant, the connection was electric. Curry hitting shots from dimensions that shouldn't exist while LeBron orchestrated the offense with the precision of a surgeon. The gold medal game, where Curry went absolutely nuclear in the fourth quarter to seal the victory with LeBron finding him on play after play after play. That was the moment. That was when the seed was planted, and both of them felt it. You could see it in the way they celebrated. You could see it in the interviews afterward. You could see it in the way they talked about each other for months after the Olympics with a reverence and a warmth that went beyond respect and entered the territory of genuine brotherhood. And ever since Paris, the basketball world has been asking the same question: what if Curry and LeBron actually played together in the NBA? What if the two greatest players of their generation who spent 4 consecutive finals going to war against each other from 2015 to 2018 decided to join forces for one last run? It was always treated as a fantasy, a pipe dream, something that would never actually happen because Curry would never leave Golden State and LeBron was committed to the Lakers. Until tonight. So, the interview happens on Curry's platform. He's sitting in his home, relaxed setting, big screen behind him showing playoff highlights, and the conversation starts normally enough. They're talking about the Warriors' season, about the disappointment of missing the playoffs again, about Curry's individual stats, which was still elite despite the team's struggles. Standard off-season reflection stuff. And then the interviewer asks the question that changes everything. The question is simple, not Steph at 38 with the Warriors in the position they're in, what do you need to feel complete before you're done playing? And Curry paused. Not a short pause, not a thinking pause, a long pause. The kind of pause where you can see a man wrestling with something internal, debating whether to say what he actually thinks or give the safe answer. And while he's pausing, on the screen behind him, the broadcast is showing a LeBron James highlight from the Rockets series, LeBron throwing down a dunk at 41 years old, and Curry glances back at the screen, watches the replay, and then turns back to the camera with an expression that I can only describe as wistful, like a man watching something beautiful and realizing he's not part of it. And then he spoke. You know, people talk about loyalty, Curry said, and I am loyal. I am loyal to Golden State. This franchise gave me everything. We built something together that changed basketball forever, 4 championships, the greatest dynasty of the modern era. I love the Bay. I love the fans. I love everything about being a Warrior. He paused again. But I'm also loyal to the game. I'm loyal to basketball itself, and basketball is about magic. It's about moments that make people stop what they're doing and just watch. And the most magical basketball I've played in the last 5 years wasn't in a Warriors uniform. He glanced at the screen again where LeBron's highlights were still playing. It was in Paris. What we did in those Olympics, what LeBron and I did together on that court, that wasn't a goodbye. That was a trailer. That was a preview of something that the basketball world has been dying to see in an NBA setting. And if the king wants one last dance, he knows where to find me. I would play with LeBron tomorrow if it meant making the kind of magic that saves the game. I literally dropped my phone. I am not exaggerating. My phone fell out of my hand and hit the floor, and I just stared at the screen for about 10 seconds before my brain caught up to what my ears had just heard. Did Stephen Curry just say that? Did the greatest Warrior of all time just publicly signal that he'd be willing to team up with LeBron James? Did the man who has been synonymous with Golden State for his entire career just admit that the most magical basketball he's played recently was not in a Warriors jersey? Do you understand the magnitude of that statement? That's not a subtle hint. That's not reading between the lines. That is Stephen Curry on camera looking at LeBron James highlights and saying, if you want to do this, I'm in. And the basketball world, rightfully, is in complete and total shock. But Curry wasn't done because the interviewer, clearly sensing that this was the biggest story of the NBA offseason and possibly the biggest story of the decade, pressed further. Asked Curry directly, "Are you saying you would leave the Warriors?" And Curry's response was the most honest, most vulnerable, most devastating thing I've ever heard him say about his relationship with the franchise. He said, "I've given Golden State 17 years, 17 years of my life, my body, my prime, my legacy, and I don't regret a single day. But I'm 38 years old. I might have 2 years left, maybe 2. And I have to ask myself a very honest question. Am I going to spend those 2 years watching the front office talk about rebuilding timelines and luxury tax savings and draft picks that won't contribute for 3 years? Or am I going to spend them chasing one more ring with the best possible chance of getting it?" He shook his head slowly. "I love Mike Dunleavy. I love Joe Lacob, but they just gave Mike a contract extension after a 37-win season. They're talking about developing Brandon Podziemski and Gui Santos, and those are great young players. I love those kids, but developing young players takes time, and time is the one thing I don't have. So, when I watch LeBron out there at 41, still competing at the highest level, still fighting for championships, and I think about what we did together in Paris, about how easy the game felt when we were on the same court, yeah, it makes me think. It makes me think about what could be. And for the first time in my career, I'm not going to pretend that those thoughts aren't there. Bro, the weight of those words. For the first time in my career, I'm not going to pretend those thoughts aren't there." That is Stephen Curry admitting publicly that he has thought about leaving the Warriors. That sentence alone is going to send shockwaves through the entire NBA. The Warriors organization is going to be in full crisis mode. Joe Lacob is going to be making phone calls at midnight. Mike Dunleavy Jr. is going to be scrambling to figure out what moves to make this summer, because if Stephen Curry walks away from Golden State, if the greatest player in franchise history decides that his loyalty has been stretched too far by an organization that prioritized financial prudence over winning, that's not just a trade or a free agency departure. That's the end of an era. That's the closing of the most important chapter in Warriors history. And then Curry brought up Draymond Green, and this part was fascinating because it revealed that this conversation isn't happening in a vacuum. Curry said Draymond said it on his podcast. He said, "If the world wants to see it, who are we to stop it? And Draymond knows me better than anyone in basketball. He knows what I'm thinking before I think it." And the fact that he said that publicly tells you that this isn't just me being emotional after a bad season. This is something that the people closest to me understand. The window in Golden State is closing. Maybe it's already closed, and the question is whether I want to spend my last years being the loyal soldier on a rebuilding team, or whether I want to chase greatness one more time. He continued, "People are going to call this cowardly. Stephen A. Smith already called the idea of me and LeBron teaming up competitive cowardice, and I heard that, but let me ask Stephen a question. Is it cowardly to want to play the most beautiful basketball possible before your body tells you it's over? Is it cowardly to want to create something that the world has never seen? Curry and LeBron on the same NBA team running the same offense, sharing the court for 82 games plus a playoff run. That's not cowardice. That's a gift to the sport. That's the kind of thing that makes a 12-year-old kid fall in love with basketball. That's the kind of thing that fills arenas and breaks television ratings and creates memories that last forever. If wanting to give the world that experience makes me a coward, then I'm the proudest coward who ever lived." And then he addressed LeBron directly, and this is the part that's going to have every NBA insider, every reporter, every front office executive analyzing every word for hidden meanings. Curry looked at the camera at the LeBron highlights still playing behind him and said, "Bron, I know you're probably going to see this, and I know we've talked. Not about specifics, not about plans, but about what it felt like in Paris, about how the game felt different when we were together, how everything slowed down, how every pass was in the right spot, how every screen led to an open shot, how the defense couldn't scheme for two of the smartest players in history on the same court. We both felt it, and we both know that what we had in Paris for 3 weeks could be what we have for an entire NBA season, maybe 2 seasons. The greatest point guard forward combination in the history of basketball. Not for a gold medal, for a championship, for the ultimate prize. He paused, and his voice got quieter, more personal. I'm not recruiting you. I'm not tampering. I'm not making promises I can't keep. I'm just saying publicly what the basketball world has been whispering privately for 2 years. If there's a way to make this work, if the stars align, if the basketball gods decide that before Curry and LeBron hang it up, they deserve to share one more court, one more run, one more shot at glory, then I'm not going to let loyalty to a front office that isn't matching my urgency stop me from experiencing the greatest basketball of my life. Their warriors can call me disloyal. The media can call me a coward. History will call me a champion, and that is the only title that matters. Are you all understanding what just happened? Let me spell it out because the magnitude of this cannot be overstated. Stephen Curry just went on camera and told LeBron James, "If you want to do this, I'm ready." He didn't use those exact words, but the message was crystal clear. He praised the Paris Olympics chemistry. He admitted the Warriors can't win now. He acknowledged that his time is running out. He quoted Draymond essentially giving his blessing. He addressed LeBron directly through the camera, and he said that loyalty to a front office that doesn't match his urgency isn't going to stop him from pursuing greatness. That is, without any ambiguity whatsoever, Stephen Curry publicly opening the door to a Curry-LeBron partnership. Now, let me talk about why this is so terrifying for the rest of the NBA. LeBron James is under a contract structure with the Lakers that gives him flexibility. Curry is under contract through 2026-27 at $62.6 million, but contracts can be restructured, traded, or bought out if both sides agree that a separation is best. And here's the factor that nobody is talking about enough. LeBron James. Bronny is in the league now, and wherever LeBron goes, the Bronny factor matters. If there's a scenario where LeBron, Curry, and Bronny are on the same team, where LeBron gets to play his final season alongside both his son and the greatest shooter ever, that's not just a basketball story. That's a cultural event. That's the biggest story in sports since Michael Jordan's last dance with the Bulls, and the basketball fit is terrifying. Think about it. LeBron James, still the best passer and playmaker in basketball at 41, running the offense, finding open shooters, creating advantages out of nothing. And the open shooter he's finding is Stephen Curry, the man who has hit more three-pointers than any human being who has ever lived. How do you defend that? Do you help off Curry to stop LeBron's drive? Curry hits a 30-footer. Do you stay on Curry? LeBron gets to the rim at will.